Hi everyone, Brian from Bearable Traders. It's the weekend, January 28th, almost 1 month gone here. And of course, this is the weekend video. We'll go over what happened last week very briefly and then take a look ahead, see what we got coming up this week. Lots of earnings on deck here, so let's get down to it. All right, let's start out by looking at what happened last week, the week of January 23rd. Earnings season continued to roll on here. We had Tesla numbers out. They were very well received by the marketplace, and in fact the share price on Tesla just basically went up about 33% just on this week alone. Of course, it's trading well above that $100 level. It almost touched a couple of weeks ago, so it's just had an amazing run here, as some of the other stocks have had as well, but Tesla just on fire. Investors and traders, obviously, they liked the numbers that came out this week. We had the personal consumption expenditure number, showed 4.4%, and year over year, which was a decline, and still some pretty strong quarterly GDP growth at 2.9%. So again, traders and investors thinking, maybe a soft landing is in the cards, and it was buy the dip. That was the theme of this week. So indexes finished strong up on the week. You can see the Dow Qs. This was actually the fourth week in a row the Qs had an up week. So Qs have been on fire as we've seen money rotate back into sort of the growthy sector, the risk-on trades. S&P, IWM all up as well. And the more stable Dow stocks actually fared okay, but they were the underperformer on the week. Consumer discretionary, strongest sector, of course, and again that goes to a risk-on trade. Energy was the actually largest losing sector after having a nice run up there. So treasuries, really there wasn't much change in the treasuries this week. 2-year and 10-year, they still are inverted. You can see about that 0.7% inversion, still sort of holding at that level. US dollar was basically flat, didn't really go anywhere, just up a fraction of a percent. And Bitcoin was really surged. Again, Bitcoin just sort of trading as a risk-on asset, and last I looked, it was trading up around 23,000, so quite the move back up after that big dip on the FTX news. So that was a week in review, and it was a pretty darn good week for the bulls. All right, before we get going here, looking at some charts, just a quick mention of my book on Amazon, Profiting as an Active Trader. It is there if you want to check that out. It's the money management rules, strategies, and routines of an active stock and option trader. Some of the stuff I use to make trades, so you can check that out if you'd like it. So let's get down and start looking at some charts here. Start out as always with the treasuries. We're kind of flatlining here. We're just, we're kind of just sloping down on the 2-year. It's just gradually coming down as maybe fears of a recession kind of wane. But, we're really not making any progress one way or another. A bit of up and down, but nothing much to speak of. As I already talked about, the 2-year and the 10-year, the spread between the two is still pretty significant. And you can see here the 10-year is well off this 4% level that we saw, and it seems to be hanging around 3.5 here. And it may creep back up here as as things sort of settle a bit to try to bring the 2 and the 10 together. But right now, just no movement one way or another here, and really flatlining on RSI, meaning there's no movement or direction one way or another, kind of obvious from the chart. Transports, great day today, or Friday I should say. Bit of a move up, but you can see here we're right at an area of prior resistance. UPS is reporting this week. That should be kind of interesting. Volume's been pretty decent over week, last couple weeks. So we'll be watching. I'm sure UPS comes out with some good numbers. This should drive this through this resistance area, and vice versa. If they come out with some bad numbers, I'm sure the transports will take a hit. But transport's always a sort of a gauge of the economy, because when things are moving around, economic conditions are generally pretty good. So the Dow, again, the Dow seemed to be the index that struggled the most, although we were up on the week. You can see here on a week basis, but we are sitting sort of into an area that's was prior support back here, and then resistance here, and resistance here, and resistance here. So seemed to be kind of range bound here. Volume was pretty good last week, a little bit better than last week, but last week was a short week. So the Qs, this is where the money's going right now. Obviously, you can see here, nice daily chart breaking out, good momentum to the upside, volume building. So risk on. And again, we're into an area where there should be, you would expect to see some some resistance here. There's a prior area here. We've got a moving average coming down, but momentum is still continuing to take us up to the upside. And of course, we've got a lot of earnings this week that could push this this even higher. The SPY, it kind of broke out here last week. You can see this level was an area that that it was trying to push through, and we had a nice move to the upside. Again, you can see here on a weekly basis we were really close to some prior levels of resistance here. So again, into some areas where we may see some resistance to go higher, despite you know, all these earnings. There may just be a sort of muted response after this big move that we've already seen in the markets here. IWM, it's kind of broke out on a daily here. And you can see this 190 level. We're right at an area where we could break out and then maybe see 200. So again, momentum indicators are turning up, and everything looks pretty strong for IWM. So risk on. And the volatility index is telling you there's really no fear in the market, as we did put in sort of a bottom here, but unless something terrible happens, I don't see this. I don't see any big sell-offs in the future. This we may pause here at some of these areas where we're seeing some prior resistance, but no big sell-offs. At least the options market isn't telling you that. The dollar, we're just kind of flatlining here after this big sell-off. You can see we're flatlining. This could be this is an area where you might expect to see some support. So we'll see if the dollar can turn here, but it is still definitely in a downtrend. This could be just in a period of consolidation before another move lower. So there's your Bitcoin. Again, 23,000 is a level right now. Had a really nice run up. Lots of, again, sort of a risk-on trade, and money came back into the Bitcoin market. Very interesting. Not playing that, but always interesting to keep an eye on it. So as far as stocks that I've got going here, ATVI still in this one. Still thinking it's you know, the Microsoft buyout was about 95 bucks. It's still trading well below that. Lots of risk in that because of course the FTC is suing Microsoft to block that deal, but it had a nice little move up last week. So I'm just holding that as a longer term hold. One of the traders wanted me to look at Boyle. Boyle is still in a downtrend, although if we go to a weekly chart, you'll see that we're into an area where there should be some support. Well, Boyle's not a great, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, Boyle's not a great chart to look at because it is a beta ETF, so more instructive actually to look at UNG, which we'll get to in a minute. So you can use those comments for Boyle as well. So Flex, I'm still in this. It is kind of getting a little toppy here. Kind of disappointing daily action on a couple days where we've been pretty strong. So we are retesting this breakout level again. If we drop below there, I may have to stop out. Gold's been on a real tear, so we broke out, and I did sell some up here, and now it's pulling back. So I suspect that we may consolidate a little bit after this nice run up. But if the dollar gets strong, if the dollar starts to move higher, then I would say it's going to be probably going to be a sell if we get a stronger dollar. So keeping an eye on the dollar as well. LAC, I'm kind of liking the way this one's looking. It does have room up to 23, some prior level of resistance here, and I got into some of this on Friday. Meta's had a really amazing run. Again, we're reporting, I think it's Wednesday after the close. Meta's reporting, we're right at the 200-day moving average. And so Meta will be interesting to see how those, because it did have this massive drop on this last earnings report. So, who knows what Meta's going to do here. Again, it's had a big run up, so a lot of good news could be priced into this, and we are coming up to this 200-day and maybe some area here where we actually started to break down around 160, 155, that area. So maybe limited upside could be an options play for Meta. TNA, again, this is just a way to play the small caps. It looks like it's breaking out. Tesla monster run back up into this area of, I would say, congestion. So possible sale of some calls up here, but Tesla's just been on a tear, and when it gets going, people just keep pushing it higher. Tesla's actually was the #1 stock in terms of options trades, apparently. So lots of option traders in this. When options get bid up and the price goes up, and it just it's kind of like what happened with GME and all the other meme stocks. You get a lot of options action that push the price around. So it is possible, that we could see 200 next week. I would not rule that out. It's got that Musk. The Musk magic, whatever you want to call it. So here's the UNG. This would be sort of what I would use to analyze Boyle as well. You can see here there's an area of support right down into where we are. You can see it almost bounced right off it. This prior level here was almost where we bounced exactly. If you look at the daily on UNG, again, 2 up days. Now we are still in a downtrend, but it is possible we could get a bigger bounce here. I did try to play Boyle, and I did hold it overnight. It did gap up a bit. There's a lot of volatility in it, so I kind of stopped out on it. I was hoping for a better gap up. But again, Boyle looking like it might be bottoming. So again, this could be a good options trade if you wanted to buy some maybe 10 or 11 calls way out into April or May, and then maybe sell some upside calls to reduce that cost. That's another option as well if you're an options trader. So, and that's about it for what I'm watching, other than all the stocks that are going to be reporting this week, and we'll talk about that right now. All right, so let's wrap things up here. January 30th, what we got to look ahead this week. A whole host of earnings, tons of earnings coming up here. Some big names, some Dow names like CAT, McDonald's, XOM, Exxon, and we've got some technology names, some chip companies, NXPI and AMD, Snap, and we get into the real big ones Thursday after the close: Apple, Amazon, QCOM, Starbucks, Ford. So lots of earnings to look forward to. There's your levels there that I've kind of sketched out here, and we are pretty close to some of these areas of prior resistance. So we can be watching to see if we're going to break out, especially the IWM. We're right at an area where we could break out from here. Economic events this week, of course, everybody's going to be waiting to hear what the Fed says. We're anticipating that 0.25% increase, but it'll be the comments we'll hear from Fed Powell after that'll be moving the markets probably around more. So just watch out for that, because it could be a very volatile Wednesday afternoon after he starts speaking. Non-farm payrolls. Presumably the Fed will know about these numbers before they're out, but we will get that number on Friday. We'll be watching to see if there's some weakness showing in the labor market. That's what the Fed wants to see, but if we continue to see strength, that's probably not great for any kind of a pivot from the Fed. So that's it, everybody. We'll hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Monday, of course, we will be starting things up live on YouTube, 8 o'clock with Engineering the Markets, Jared. 8:30, taking you into the pre-market show, and then, of course, members, we will be trading the market open when things get going at 9:30. So hopefully we'll see you at one of all of those events. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye for now.